Believe it or not, there's only 7 days left for Xilonen's banner. Before she does go away, let's talk about her pull value. So first, I'd say it's good timing, asterisk. If you are like the biggest fan of Chaska or Aroron, you really want them. Chaska and Aroron are next patch. Aroron 4-star most likely. Chaska is a 5-star. 5.3 should be Mavuika and possibly Setlali. So what I'm saying is, if you want to go for Xilonen now and you don't want the next patch's characters, you got time to save, right? You have a whole patch to save in between now and Mavuika. So it's a good timing, right? Not too much that's going to be important in the meantime. You can just kind of save the rest of this current patch and for the rest of the next patch if you don't want Hu Tao or Nahida or any of the reruns or any of these new characters on the left hand side. If you're waiting for version 5.3 to pull, you got some time. We're pretty far away from any major character drops, so if you do want to get Xilonen now, it's not going to be too much of a detriment to your Primo gems. Number 2, come on now. You see what she does. You see how she works. She's a very strong support. Now you already know it's all about support impact, right? So when it comes to supporters, it's always a thumbs up. So what does she do? Well, she actually reduces the elemental res by 36% for the enemies around you, as long as there's 2 characters in your party who are Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro. So, let's say you have something like, Clorinde and Fischl. Don't mind Bennett there, but Clorinde and Fischl are 2 Electro characters. So what she would do is she would bring down the elemental res for Electro on an enemy, right? So you'd have 36% Electro res down on whatever enemy is around you. And that changes depending on what team you play. So if it's 2 Cryo, that's 36% res down on Cryo. Hydro, Electro, Pyro, right? And she's actually our first Geo healer. I know Goro does have a constellation that gives him healing, but this is our true first Geo healer. The first one to actually have a healing just mechanic in their kit, right? And this doesn't really do much for you besides just heal you. She has a hybrid DPS side too, but supportive wise, she brings down elemental res and she can heal. That's what Xilonen does herself. Her artifact set will give you some more elemental damage bonus too. So this big old text here you see, basically what it's saying is, with a 4-piece, essentially if you have an element on an enemy and you hit them with this character, in this case Xilonen, that elemental type you'll get damage bonus for. And then on top of that, if the person who did it is in a Night Soul Blessing, they give you 28% more. So basically 40% elemental damage bonus for a specific type. So what does that look like? Well, if we go over to an enemy and we apply them with an element, let's do Electro. We use our Night Soul Blessing mode. We hit them twice. We got the res down for Electro. We also have elemental damage bonus from the 12% because we got the reaction with Electro, and we get the extra 28% because we were in the Night Soul Blessing. So that's 40. You can see for Geo we have 40, and then you can see for Electro we have 40. So it is very specific to whatever element your team is full of, right? So you do have to pay attention to that. It's not just a universal buff for no matter what team you play. The element matters, but damage bonus, elemental res down, healer, like it's a good support. And number 3, her constellations are not tempting. Now hold on. You're gonna be like, did you see the C2? What are you talking about? Like, are you even aware of what her constellations are? Let me explain. Let's break it down, right? Sabbatical phrase, C1. Notice a lot of this is actually just good no matter where you are. But one part of this, it mentions Phlogiston. That's only in that land. How do you feel about pulling a constellation for a character where it only works in a specific area of the game? So I don't know about you, but I don't like that. The rest of it does work everywhere, right? You have interruption resistance, which is good because she's a supporter. So on your Nouvelette, you're not getting smacked around when you're trying to blast, and Arlecchino's not getting smacked around when she's trying to attack. So that's really nice. You get more time to skate. But if you've seen any kind of video, I'll show you here. This is courtesy of Genshin Showcase. They made a little showcase of C0 versus C1 Xilonen Exploration. You can see C1 and C0, there's not too much of a difference, and what you're seeing right now is all phlogiston. That's all phlogiston right there. So without being in that land, none of that even matters, right? And you saw how short of a time you had to skate. Now it's mostly meant to go up the walls, right? But you can see it's not that much of a difference between C0 and C1. So just know on the right hand side, you get about like an extra 2 seconds to skate. And that's what you're getting with C1, only if you're in that land. So I'm just saying that you saw it for yourself. That don't seem too worth it to me, but maybe it's just me. Man, I'm just saying, if C1 ain't that good, I kind of don't want to even get that to begin with to get to C2. You know what I mean? But let's say you do get to C1, you want C2. On paper, this sounds really good, right? So you play the respective team, you know, double Pyro in there, double Geo, you know, whatever it is. You get certain bonuses depending on what teams you play. And that's kind of how Xilonen works with the whole source sample thing in her kit. So Pyro, shredding the stick, just gets us some attack percent, you know. It's a good amount, don't get me wrong. It's like a Wolf's Gravestone R5, you know, plus 5%. More damage bonus for Geo. Really good for Hydro. It's nice for Cryo, but let's be real, are you really playing Geo in your Cryo teams? Maybe not. I don't know about you, but I'm not playing too much Geo in my Cryo teams. This is the coolest part though, the Electro part. That's the coolest part. So you get 25% more energy, and you decrease the elemental burst cooldown by 6%. Anything that has to do with cooldown reduction is just such a W in my book. That's so cool, because that just changes the way you play it. There's been a lot of like Kaching showcases where she's just like constantly burst spamming, you know what I mean? Or a Clorinde even. It's not exactly burst spamming, but it's real close. You know, like you'll have like 1 second to wait in between. That's the coolest thing about C2, but is it worth getting the C1 to get the C2? Not in my opinion. You know what I mean? And she already does so much for her, for the characters already. And by all means, it's good. You play double, you know, Furina, Nouvelette, you get more HP. That's great. More attack for Pyro. They're all good individually. But my thing is this, if you could have like both, or like, you know, if you played Hu Tao double Hydro, if you got like the Pyro attack percent and the max HP, then I'd understand. But obviously you only get one, so whatever team you're playing. So yeah, coolest thing about C2 is the last part with the Electro one, but it's just a nice damage bonus, just some more damage, you know. So in my opinion, it's not too crazy. So, and that's pretty much the stopping point for a lot of people, is like the C2 nowadays is where people are like, should I get the C2? Should I not? You know, or even C1. Beyond that is, you know, we're getting into dolphin territory or insanely lucky territory, or you wanted a 4-star C6 territory. But yeah, the rest is just like more for Xilonen herself, and C4 is actually like a normal attack damage bonus as well. So yeah, Khan's just not too worth it in my opinion. C2 is cool on paper, but yeah, if C1 was entirely different, or if it was more like Xilonen could skate for 50% more of the time, you know, like Xiangling C4, if it was like that but for skate time with Xilonen, then I may have reconsidered that. Like if I could just like skate for like 40% longer or 50% longer, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. But yeah, in my opinion, I don't think they're too tempting. Number 4, easy to build. Xilonen most likely just wants some defense. That's all you're really going for. Xilonen does have the capabilities to be a DPS. You can level these up and actually, like, you know, give her damage. Play in her Geo team, she'll do some damage. Her multipliers are not too high, nothing crazy, but you can do DPS if you want to. I don't mean to shatter anybody's DPS Xilonen dreams. You can do it, but keeping it simple, right? Xilonen is most likely going to be a supporter, right? And in that support build, you just kind of want defense because that's what's going to give you more healing, and it's going to give you like a little bit extra damage you can squeeze out on Xilonen herself. So more defense that she has, that's what she scales off of. So it's just good to have defense pieces, right? Defense Sands or ER Sands, defense Goblet, and defense Circlet if you want to. You do a healing bonus if you really need it. I don't think you really do. And then you could also try and squeeze out some damage with like a crit damage circlet. But she scales off of defense, and her healing is off of defense as well. And you do want to actually have significant healing. So you just win defense, really. You don't really have a worry about like the crit rate, crit damage build, stuff like that. So it's real simple. Weapon, you can just do like Fav if you want. I don't want to overlook her actual weapon though. This is very good. It's very good, but it's not one of those things where it's like you gotta have it. But I'll say this, if her artifact set didn't exist, then I would say this is like, you might want to have it. But the artifact set pretty much kind of does what this does, essentially. You know, really what this is doing is just giving elemental damage bonus to the team. And this does it as well. So you put two together, you get 25.6% elemental damage bonus on top of the 40% as well. So that's good. It's just not what you really, really need. You know what I mean? And you'll most likely have enough defense if you do have peak patrol assault. The main thing is the scale on the burst. The burst is just the healing, but you know you want to get this fairly high, like 6, maybe 8, just so she can actually heal. And then this you want to pretty much just crown, because you get the highest amount of elemental res decrease with levels on this. So this leveling up increases the amount of elemental res you decrease. Artifact set, scroll, the new one. You know, you probably have enough pieces already. Doesn't really matter what you do. Just, I'd say ER is good. And defense, obviously. I have a bit of a hybrid of like, you know, trying to get some crit damage, crit rate in there. Because it's just nice to see her do her like 2 kicks and get like a crit off of it. It's just nice to see her do a little bit of damage. You know what I mean? Just a little bit. I'm not trying to have her go crazy, but just you know, gave her a little something just so she could actually have, you know, some meaningful hits when she does, because she has to hit the enemy to give you the buff anyways. So I figured with Paw Patrol, your defense is pretty much taken care of anyways, so you can kind of have that free leeway of building her for a little bit of damage, you know. And with this, she actually gets damage here for herself. So yeah, build just defense and level your skill. Xilonen versus Kazuha. This discussion keeps on coming up every single time a new support comes out. Right off the bat, I said this years ago when Yelan was coming out. I said, when you have another character who has similarities to another character already, that already exists, it's never a bad thing when it comes to supporters or sub DPSs. When it comes to just full-on DPSs, that's a different story. But supporters, I mean, it's never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. It's always good to have them both, because instead of putting them against each other, you can put them together. So it's not going to be in every situation where Kazuha and Xilonen will be able to fit on the same team. Mostly, I'll be honest, it's Nuvalet for the most part. But by all means, it's always a good thing to have them both together, right? Or even just to have them both on your account, because then you have one side that can have this character and the other side can have the other character, right? But what's so funny about Kazuha and Xilonen, check this out. Kazuha does not, I repeat, does not bring down the elemental res of enemies. He doesn't. You know what does? The artifact set that he uses, Viridus Inventor. That's what's bringing down the elemental res. Xilonen, she doesn't give you elemental damage bonus. She doesn't. You know what she does do? She brings down the elemental res in her kit. What does give you elemental damage bonus is her artifact set. So both of these characters do the opposite things internally in their own kit, but externally, outside of their own kit, is the second part of what they do. And both of them are vice versa. So like I mentioned, Kazuha gives you 40% elemental damage bonus, assuming you're at 1,000, at least 1,000 EM, right? He gives you elemental damage bonus. And Xilonen gives you res down. Just if your talent is leveled up, right? But like I said, the external piece, their artifact sets, give them the other part. So for Xilonen, she gives you elemental damage bonus, 40%. 40%, right? And Kazuha gives you about 40% res down on the enemy. So that's why I was mentioning the weapon, because this one kind of gives Xilonen the edge in terms of how much elemental damage bonus she's giving you, because this one gives you 25% more. So instead of 40%, you're getting like, what, 65% damage bonus. And then if you're like really crazy and you refine this, woo. But anywho, they're really cool because they both kind of do the opposite thing, but the same thing at the same time with their artifact sets. So the only thing though that you can never ever deny about Kazuha, the man groups. I'm sorry, that's such a good feature in a real-time action game, especially one like this where you're short on time. If you're playing the Abyss and stuff like that, you want to put them all together. That's such a good feature, right? So that's going to be the big versus moment between the two. If you feel like you already have Kazuha and you feel like that's enough already, it's justified, you know? If you don't want to deal with having to play specific teams like double Pyro, double Electro, double Cryo, it may kind of feel like, maybe I don't want Xilonen, you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to tell you is having both these characters is by far never, ever going to be a bad thing, you know? And like I said, in certain situations, you can play them at the same time. Honestly, most times you could. The problem with other characters is that sometimes they can't exactly add the element on the enemy without their DPS window starting. So sometimes you gotta have the other character to apply it so Kazuha can swirl it, right? And the same thing goes for Xilonen, right? It's the same thing, because you want to have, or her artifact set wants you to have the element on the enemy first so you can proc the 12%. So in a lot of ways, they are very, very, very similar. The only downside is Xilonen is she's not somebody who can group, right? But she can also heal. Don't forget that too. She can heal, Kazuha can't heal. So TLDR, is there any kind of winner here? No, not really. I mean, they're both just great supports. And unless you just already had Kazuha and you love Kazuha to death and you don't really feel the need to get another supporter, then you're good. You know, you're sitting pretty. But if you want to take your team to the next level and you want to run them both in the same team, if you want to just like, you know, have that supporter that gives you a little bit more damage with the elemental res down, and not to mention the longer res down as well. That's a pretty big important part too. She has 15 seconds on her res down, whereas Kazuha only has like 10. Yeah, 10 seconds. So it's 4% more than Xilonen, but it's only for 10 seconds, and 10 seconds is not a long time. So those 5 extra seconds can make a pretty big difference in your DPS window. You know what I mean? Some people need that time to ramp up and stuff like that. So, but just making this video right now, it just told me how many similarities there are between the two. You know what I mean? Because Xilonen, on her downfall for Xilonen is you kind of need to have, not kind of, you do need to have two of the same element if you really want to make it work. If you're not doing that, you're kind of missing the point of playing Xilonen. But don't forget the artifact set. So, you know, it's going to be a little rough to make it work without the double elements, but essentially what will happen is you'll get this bonus. You'll still get 40% damage bonus from the artifact set and nothing else. So it's kind of unfortunate if you're not running double. If you have this though, you are getting the 65%. So, because you don't have to actually have the requirement that she wants in her skill for the weapon. So if you really want to get her, you know, like working as she is intended to, you want double element. Sadly, can't be Animo. Sadly, can't be Dendro. But you will still get a benefit from the artifact set. So, yeah. Overall, Kazuha versus Xilonen, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to give it to Kazuha because of the grouping, you can. But they're both like very, very similar to each other. So yeah, overall, I would say Xilonen is a great pull. Our pull value is great, very versatile, semi-versatile. Versatile, but there are obviously some comps where she won't work as well. Same deal with Kazuha. So I'd say you should do it. If you're thinking about it, I think you should do it these last 7 days. If you're somebody who just loves Dendro teams and teams where she can't really work in, then that's understandable. But I'd recommend Xilonen. I got her myself. I got her on my alt account as well, which is the thing that I rarely ever do is pull on that account. So, oh, one more thing. Now, I do have one negative thing and one reason why you shouldn't pull Xilonen. The 4 stars on this current ban. That is definitely a downside for pulling Xilonen right now. It's a little rough. It's a little rough. The 4 stars in question are Candace, Kali, and Dori. And a lot of people just hate Dori for some reason. I don't know why. But Dori, Candace, and Kali. Kali is a free character. She was also free back in a Sumeru event if you were playing a couple years ago. But she's also free permanently if you finish floor 4 of the Abyss. So she's a free character. Good Dendro application. Or good Dendro application. Dendro application if you need that. Candace, bit of a hidden gem, but only for about a couple characters. At any constellation, she's pretty good for Mualani, just because she has normal attack bonus. And if you didn't know, Mualani's Shark Bite isn't considered a normal attack. And for C6 Candace, Arlecchino would like her very much because she can vape her hits with Candace, and it can actually save you Xingqiu or Yelan for your other team. So. And it's not just like, oh, it's kind of good. Like, no, it's actually pretty good. Like, it fits very well for Arlecchino. And then Dori. Yeah. Dori, she can definitely be used. It's just the whole, like, line thing with the Electro application is kind of finicky. You're gonna have to like run around, and if your lamp is not there or it's too far away from you, it can be annoying. So I personally haven't found too much use for her, but I will say, if your Shinobu is busy somewhere else, she is an option. You could level your Dori, you can use her, she can fit in the same slot, build her with either instructors or just like a Hyper Bloom set. You can use her in that same slot if you want to. Just won't be as comfortable to use because you don't have a ring around you of Electro. You have a string, a line that you have to kind of weave in between enemies with. So your 4-star lineup is a little bit rough this time. It's in preparation for Nihida's birthday for the patch. That's why it's all Sumeru characters. But that's the biggest downside to the Xilonen's banner is the 4 stars, probably. But I'd say it's a W for Candace. If you get Candace cons, that's good. The rest of them, though, yeah. Dori has some pretty cool cons, too, but only if you actually plan to use Dori. So in the end, every really good, like, super buffer in this game has their drawbacks and restrictions. Furina can buff everyone, but it comes at a cost. She has to have the whole team's health fluctuate if she wants to get her fanfare stacks, and the more fanfare stacks she has, the more damage bonus she gives the whole team. So you kind of get cornered into playing Jean or Shanyun or a party-wide healer, Baiju, somebody to kind of give you those stacks quicker. Kazuha has to swirl the elements, only the 4 of them, can't be, Geo or Animo, obviously not Animo. Xilonen, she wants 2 of the same elements in the same team, so they all have the drawbacks, they all have certain scenarios, but in the end, Furina, Kazuha, Xilonen, can't go too wrong with them, So that's my 2 cents on it. Xilonen is fastly dissipating. She'll be back, I hope, maybe. R.I.P. Risley. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. For any new players out there, I would probably lean more towards Kazuha. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely a great character, but I would lean towards Kazuha if you were someone who was new. We see Kazuha maybe like once a year every summer, if you want to know that. Usually in the summertime, we see Kazuha once a year. But Xilonen, thumbs up. Just clean character, no real problems there. Just good. So Did you pull Furro already? Are you going to? Are you going for the rerun? If so, that's fine too. But yeah, good luck on your pulls, and I'll look at you guys in the next one.